Why is it that some of the most compassionate souls seem to carry the deepest scars? Why do those who have walked through darkness often become the very people others turn to in their own moments of despair? If you've ever been told you're too sensitive, if you've heard that you feel too much, or that you need to toughen up, I want you to know something: you're not alone in this experience. And what you've been told is a weakness might actually be the doorway to a profound form of wisdom, but only if you're willing to walk through the process of true healing. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to reflect back what you may have already discovered in your own journey. I'm here as a mirror, not as a guru. Because the truth is, you already know what it feels like to absorb the pain of a room before anyone speaks a word. You already know what it's like to carry burdens that aren't yours to carry. The question isn't whether you feel deeply. The question is, what do you do with that depth? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who pioneered analytical psychology, once observed something profound about healing. Only the wounded physician heals, he said, and then only to the extent he has healed himself. Notice what he said there. Not only the wounded physician heals, but only to the extent he has healed himself. The key word is healed, not wounded, not broken, healed. Before we dive deeper, if this resonates with your soul's journey, please hit that like button and subscribe for more transformational content. Your support helps this message reach other souls who need to hear it. This distinction is everything. Because what we're exploring together isn't how to stay broken. It's how to transform what broke you into integrated wisdom. Your brokenness was never meant to be your permanent identity. It was an initiation, a catalyst. But the goal is to move through it, not to build your life around it. Research psychologist Elaine Aron spent decades studying what she calls highly sensitive persons, or HSPs. About 15 to 20% of the population has a nervous system that processes information more deeply, feels emotions more intensely, and picks up on subtleties others miss. Aron identifies this through what she calls the DOES model: depth of processing, overstimulation, emotional responsivity, and empathy and sensitivity to subtleties. If you're highly sensitive, your empathy isn't a character flaw. It's a neurological reality. You have more active mirror neurons. You process emotional information differently. Your brain literally works in a way that creates deep emotional responsivity. But here's where it gets complicated: when that sensitive nervous system encounters trauma, cruelty, or prolonged stress without adequate support, something fractures, not because you're weak, but because you were carrying weight without a proper container to hold it. And that's where so many people with a personal empath nature find themselves, not just feeling deeply, but feeling broken by how deeply they feel. The paradox we're going to explore is this: empathy can be both your greatest gift and your greatest vulnerability. It can connect you to others in profound ways, or it can dissolve your boundaries until you don't know where you end and others begin. The darkness you've survived, whether it was betrayal, abandonment, abuse, or simply the accumulated weight of absorbing too much pain for too long, that darkness was real. I'm not here to minimize it, but I am here to tell you that surviving it doesn't have to mean being defined by it forever. You've been initiated into something. You've been forced to confront parts of human experience that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. And yes, that gives you a certain kind of understanding, a certain depth of presence. But only, and this is crucial, only if you're willing to do the work of integration. Only if you're willing to heal, not just survive. So let's be clear from the start: this isn't about romanticizing suffering. This isn't about convincing you that being wounded makes you special or chosen. This is about recognizing that you've been through something difficult, and that difficulty can become wisdom, but only through the conscious work of healing and personal development. Are you ready to explore what that looks like? Let's talk about what actually breaks an empath. Because it's not what most people think. Feeling deeply doesn't break you. Caring intensely doesn't break you. Having a sensitive nervous system doesn't break you. What breaks you is the collision between your soul's natural openness and a world that doesn't know how to hold it. What breaks you is absorbing cruelty, betrayal, or neglect without having the tools, support, or boundaries to process it. What breaks you is being told over and over that the way you're wired is wrong. In Greek mythology, there's a figure named Chiron. He was a centaur, half human, half horse, and he was wounded by a poisoned arrow. The wound never healed. It caused him eternal pain. But here's the remarkable part. Chiron became the greatest healer in all of mythology. He taught medicine, music, and wisdom to heroes. He could heal everyone except himself. Jung would later call this the archetype of the wounded healer. And before you ask, yes, I'm using the word archetype as metaphor, not as literal psychology. Archetypes in Jung's framework are symbolic patterns that appear across human stories and dreams. They're ways of understanding recurring themes in human experience. The wounded healer represents something profound, the person whose own pain becomes the source of their ability to sit with others' pain. Not because the wound itself is special, but because the journey through the wound creates a kind of understanding that can't be taught any other way. But, and this is critical, the metaphor only works if Chiron is actively engaged in the work of healing. If he's learning from the wound, if he's integrating the experience. For you, this means, yes, what you've been through has given you insight. But that insight only becomes wisdom when you stop identifying as the broken one and start identifying as the one who is healing. So many empaths try to hide their sensitivity. You've probably done this too. You've worn masks. You've pretended to be tougher than you are. You've tried to play the role of the person who has it all together, who can't be hurt, who doesn't need support. And every single mask has eventually betrayed you. Because you can't sustain what isn't true. Your sensitivity isn't something you can amputate. It's woven into the fabric of who you are. Elaine Aron's research shows that HSPs who try to suppress their sensitivity experience higher rates of anxiety, depression, and physical health problems. The depth of processing that characterizes high sensitivity doesn't go away when you ignore it. It just turns inward and becomes self-destructive. Jung understood this deeply. His entire concept of individuation, becoming whole, rests on the idea that wholeness isn't about perfection. It's about reconciliation of opposites. It's about integrating all the parts of yourself, including the parts you've been taught to reject. The wound itself can become a teacher. The scar can hold wisdom, but only if you're willing to look at it, learn from it, and then, crucially, let it heal. Here's what you carry that many others don't. You are living proof that the abyss can be survived. You've descended into emotional depths that terrify most people, and you're still here. That's not nothing. That's evidence of a kind of resilience that most people never have to develop. And because you've been there, you have something rare. You can sit with someone else's pain without immediately trying to fix it, escape it, or minimize it. You can hear someone say, "I want to die," without panicking, because you felt that darkness yourself. You can hold space for grief, for rage, for despair, because these aren't foreign territories to you. Researcher Brené Brown, whose work focuses on vulnerability and shame, describes empathy as the antidote to shame. She says the two most powerful words in human connection are, "me too." Not, "let me fix this for you." Not, "you shouldn't feel that way." Just, "me too. I've been there. You're not alone." That's what your experience has given you the capacity for. Not because you're still broken, but because you remember what it felt like to be broken. And that memory, when integrated with your healing, becomes a bridge. You carry in your chest the union of seemingly opposite experiences: love and terror, hope and despair, life and death. You know what it's like to feel both connected and profoundly alone. You understand that light and darkness aren't separate realms, but interwoven aspects of existence. and this makes your presence magnetic to people who are suffering. Not in a codependent way, we'll talk about that important distinction later, but in a way that says, I see you. I've been in a place like that. And I made it through. Which means you can too. But here's where we need to pause and make something absolutely clear. You are not required to be everyone's emotional support system. You are not required to sacrifice yourself on the altar of others' pain. You are not required to prove your worth by how much you can carry. The goal isn't to become a professional sufferer. The goal is to become someone who has integrated their suffering and now moves through the world with both compassion and boundaries, both tenderness and the ability to say no. Your survival of darkness makes you a bridge between worlds, between those who haven't yet faced their shadows and those who are learning to integrate theirs. But you can only be that bridge if you've first built solid ground on both sides. If you've done the work of healing in your own life. So as we move forward, I want you to hold this paradox. Your experience matters and has given you valuable insight. And also, your experience doesn't have to define you forever. You can honor what you've been through while still choosing to become someone new. Now we're going to go deeper. Because there's a part of the empath's journey that most self-help content avoids. It's uncomfortable. It challenges the image of the empath as purely gentle, purely giving, purely light. I want you to imagine something with me. It's a dream, or perhaps a waking vision. You're walking through a forest at night. The trees are dense. The path is unclear. You're lost and you know it. And then you see it, a wolf emerging from the shadows, eyes gleaming, watching you. The hair stands up on the back of your neck. Every instinct screams danger. The wolf doesn't attack. It just circles, waiting, watching, and somehow you know this wolf is waiting for you to see something, to understand something. Most people in this dream wake up in a cold sweat. They think the wolf is the enemy, the predator, the thing that will destroy them. But what if the wolf is something else entirely? What if the wolf represents the part of you that you've banished? The part that knows how to say no. The part that has teeth. The part that doesn't apologize for existing. The part that can growl when threatened. Carl Jung spent his career exploring what he called the shadow. The parts of ourselves we reject, deny, or repress because they don't fit our self-image. For empaths, the shadow often contains exactly this: your anger, your boundaries, your capacity to be fierce, your right to protect yourself. You've been taught that to be good, you must be gentle. That to be loving, you must be self-sacrificing. That to be spiritual or evolved, you must never feel rage or resentment. So you've locked the wolf away. You've tried to be only the soft parts, only the giving parts, only the parts that others find comfortable and non-threatening. And what happened? You became exhausted. You became a target for people who exploit softness. You gave and gave until you had nothing left. You mistook martyrdom for love. This is what Jung meant when he said we must integrate the opposites. Your compassion is incomplete without your wolf. Your love becomes distorted, addictive, even enslaved when it denies the raw, untamed energy of healthy self-protection. Let me be very specific about what this looks like in practice. Incomplete compassion says, I'll help you no matter what it costs me. Integrated compassion says, I'll help you in the ways I'm able while also protecting my own well-being. Incomplete compassion says, your pain is my responsibility to fix. Integrated compassion says, I can witness your pain without making it mine to carry. Incomplete compassion says, I can't say no because that would be selfish. Integrated compassion says, no is a complete sentence, and boundaries are sacred. Missed. The empath's addiction to sacrifice often masks something deeper, a belief that your worth is determined by how much you can endure for others. That if you're not actively suffering in service of someone else, you have no value. This is codependency, and it's not love. It's a trauma response. It's the wound trying to heal itself by recreating the original pattern over and over, hoping this time it will turn out differently. Shadow integration means facing this honestly. It means admitting, I have confused self-destruction with compassion. I have confused having no boundaries with being a good person. I have confused letting people walk all over me with being evolved. And then it means reclaiming the wolf. This doesn't mean becoming cruel. It doesn't mean losing your capacity for tenderness. It means allowing your tenderness to be protected by discernment, by the ability to recognize when someone is genuinely struggling and when someone is simply using you. When you integrate the shadow, when you let the growl live alongside the gentleness, something rare emerges presence that doesn't shatter when faced with intensity. Most people respond to emotional crisis in one of two ways. They either run away, it's too much, I can't handle this, or they collapse into it. I must fix this. I must take all this pain away. But the integrated empath, the one who has befriended their wolf, can do something different, and they can stand beside the pain without fleeing and without drowning. Here's a practical technique for this. When someone comes to you in distress before you respond, take 3 deep breaths. Literally. 3 slow, conscious breaths where you feel your feet on the ground. This is called grounding, and it's not just a metaphor. It's a neurological reset that helps you remain present without merging. You hold the pain as sacred fire, meaning you respect it, you honor it, you sit with it, but you don't let it consume you because you've sat in that fire yourself. You know it can be survived. You know that people need to feel their own heat. Sometimes not have someone else rush in with a fire extinguisher before the transformation can happen. This is why strangers confide in you. Why people tell you secrets they've told no one else. It's not just because you're kind. It's because your soul has already housed the nightmare they're living. You've been the abandoned one. You've been the betrayed one. You felt the crushing weight of despair. And when someone looks in your eyes, they can sense this person won't judge me. This person won't be shocked. This person has been to that place and returned. But, and this is crucial, you can only hold space like this sustainably when you've learned to distinguish between resonance and ownership. When you've learned that feeling with someone is different from feeling for someone. Resonance. I understand that pain. I've felt something similar. I'm here with you. Ownership. Your pain is now my pain. I must carry it for you. I can't rest until you're okay. The integrated empath practices resonance. The unhealed empath gets trapped in ownership. And this is where the wounded healer archetype reaches its fullest expression, not as sentiment, not as a pretty metaphor, but as lived practice. The healer doesn't heal by fixing. The healer heals by embodying. You don't need to repair another person's soul. You need only to show them that difficulty can become a doorway, that darkness can be an initiation into deeper understanding, that despair, when moved through rather than around, can become the birthplace of meaning. But remember Jung's warning: only the wounded physician heals, and then only to the extent he has healed himself. If you're still bleeding from your own wound, you can't effectively help others with theirs. You'll just create a mess of merged pain where neither person knows whose feelings are whose. This is why shadow integration isn't optional. It's not a nice to have. It's essential. Because without it, your empathy will remain an unconscious hunger, a way of feeding your need for worth by endlessly rescuing others. With shadow integration, your empathy becomes something else entirely. a conscious choice to be present, grounded in your own wholeness, offering your experience as a map, but never forcing someone to follow it. The wolf isn't your enemy. The wolf is your teacher. And when you finally stop running from it and instead turn to face it, you discover something extraordinary. It was always protecting you. You just didn't know how to speak its language yet. Let's talk about what happens after the initial breaking. After you've survived the worst, after you've discovered you have depths you never knew existed. Imagine another dream waters are rising. A flood. It sweeps through your town, through your life, carrying away everything you thought was permanent. Homes, memories, the illusion of control. You're clinging to a tree branch. Your arms are shaking. You don't know how much longer you can hold on. And then you let go. You expect to drown. You expect this to be the end. But instead, the water carries you. It's terrifying, yes. You have no control. But slowly, gradually, you realize you're not drowning. You're being carried. And eventually, the water deposits you on a new shore. A place you never would have reached by holding on. This is the empath's path, the letting go of control over outcomes. The surrender to the reality that you cannot fix, save, or rescue everyone. That you cannot prevent all pain. That trying to do so is actually preventing both you and others from the transformations that need to happen. Elaine Aron's research on highly sensitive people includes something called the DOES model: depth of processing, overstimulation, emotional responsivity and empathy, and sensitivity to subtleties. The overstimulation piece is crucial here. When you're a highly sensitive person, your nervous system can become overwhelmed more easily. You're processing more information, feeling more deeply, picking up on more subtleties. Without tools to manage this, you become like that sponge, absorbing, until you're completely saturated and dripping with everyone else's pain. The shift from survival to sustainable wisdom means learning to channel the flood into rivers. It means transmuting raw feeling into something structured. Meaning art, creative expression, grounded presence. You are no longer simply at the mercy of every emotion that sweeps through a room. You've developed what we might call emotional literacy. The ability to name what you're feeling, distinguish it from what others are feeling, and choose how to respond rather than simply reacting. But let's talk about what you've actually gained from having lived in what others flee from. You've spent time in the unconscious realm, in the territory of dreams, symbols, deep feelings, the parts of human experience that most people keep carefully locked away. Most people are afraid of this realm. They're afraid of their own dreams, their own intensity, their own capacity for both love and destruction. They've built elaborate defense mechanisms to avoid ever looking at their shadow, their pain, their complexity. But you've been forced to become fluent in the language of the depths. You understand metaphor. You understand symbols. You know that when someone says, "I feel like I'm drowning," they're not being dramatic. They're describing an actual psychic state. As Brené Brown says, vulnerability is the courage to show up, even when you can't control the outcome. You've developed this courage not by choice, but by necessity. And now it's become a kind of strength. But with this understanding comes danger. And we need to address this head-on. Many empaths remain trapped in the wound. They cling to their identity as the broken one, as though pain were their only mirror, as though suffering were the only thing that makes them interesting or worthy of attention. This is the trap we must name clearly, the identity addiction to suffering. It looks like this. You're only comfortable in relationships, where you're the helper and they're the helped. You feel anxious or purposeless when things are going well. You unconsciously seek out or create drama because calm feels unsafe. You tell your trauma story compulsively, even to people who don't need to hear it. You resist healing because part of you believes, if I'm not suffering, who am I? This is where many with a personal empath identity attract narcissists, abusers, and emotional parasites. These people have a sixth sense for someone with weak boundaries. They can feel that you've confused self-destruction with virtue, and they will absolutely exploit that confusion. Let me give you some warning signs of toxic relationships. You feel consistently drained after spending time with this person. You're walking on eggshells, constantly monitoring their mood. Your needs are always secondary. They take, but rarely give. You feel responsible for their emotional state. You can't predict whether they'll be kind or cruel. You make excuses for their behavior. You feel like you can't leave. If you're recognizing yourself in these patterns, please hear this. This is not compassion. This is codependency. And there's a crucial difference. Compassion says, I see your struggle. I support your growth. I believe in your capacity to heal. Codependency says, I need to fix your struggle. My worth depends on your healing. I don't believe you can do this without me. Compassion has boundaries. It knows when to engage and when to step back. Codependency has no boundaries. It says yes when it means no. It gives until there's nothing left. Fierce compassion, the kind that comes from shadow integration, means saying yes and no with equal sacredness. It means recognizing that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's dysfunction. Sometimes it means walking away. I care about you, and I need to preserve my energy. I can listen for 20 minutes, then I need to step away. I'm not able to help with that, but here's a resource. These aren't selfish statements. They're self-respecting statements, and they're essential for sustainable empathy and personal development. Now let's get practical. Because all the philosophical understanding in the world doesn't matter if you don't have tools for daily life. Understanding your nervous system. Before we dive into techniques, you need to understand what's happening in your body. When you're highly sensitive, your nervous system operates differently. You have what's called a lower threshold for stimulation. This means your sympathetic nervous system. And the fight or flight response activates more easily and takes longer to return to baseline. When you absorb someone else's distress, your body doesn't distinguish between their crisis and yours. Your heart rate increases. Cortisol floods your system. Your muscles tense. You're experiencing a physiological stress response to emotions that aren't even yours. This is why just don't take things personally doesn't work. Your nervous system is already activated. You need tools that work with your biology, not against it. Morning grounding ritual, 5 minutes. This practice literally regulates your nervous system before you encounter the day's stimulation. Sit or stand with your feet flat on the floor. Press down, feeling the solid contact between your feet and the ground. Take 5 deep breaths using the 4-7-8 technique. Breathe in through your nose for 4 counts, hold for 7 counts, exhale through your mouth for 8 counts. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's natural calming mechanism. Place one hand on your heart, one on your belly. Feel your heartbeat. Feel your breath. This is called dual awareness. You're anchoring in your physical body while remaining aware of your internal state. Say this intention aloud or silently. I can feel without absorbing. I can be present without losing myself. My energy is my own. Visualize a boundary around you, not a wall, but a permeable membrane like the surface of a bubble. It flexes but doesn't break. It allows connection but prevents complete merging. See it glowing with your own color, your own light. Set one specific boundary intention for the day. For example, today I will not check my phone immediately upon waking. Or, today I will not take responsibility for other people's moods. The stop technique for overwhelming moments. When you feel yourself absorbing too much in real-time use, this S. Stop what you're doing. Literally pause. T. Take 3 conscious breaths. Count them. O. Observe what you're feeling without judgment. Name it. This is anxiety. This is not mine. This is sadness I'm picking up from the room. P. Proceed with intention. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? What boundary do I need to set? This takes 30 seconds. It interrupts the automatic absorption pattern. Energy protection after difficult interactions. When you've been in a draining conversation or environment, your nervous system needs active reset, not just time. Physical discharge. Shake out your body vigorously for 60 seconds. This isn't metaphorical. Animals do this instinctively after stress. Shake your hands like you're flinging water off them. Jump up and down. This discharges the stress hormones from your muscles. Temperature change. Wash your hands with cold water. Splash cold water on your face. Cold activates your vagus nerve, which signals safety to your nervous system. As you wash, imagine the absorbed emotions literally washing away down the drain. Environmental shift. Go outside if possible. If not, move to a different room. Open a window. Change the physical space. Your nervous system associates locations with emotional states. Changing location helps break the pattern. The sorting journal. Write for 5 minutes, answering these questions. What feelings am I experiencing right now? Which of these are actually mine? Which did I absorb from the other person? What do I need to release? What do I need to keep? This practice creates crucial distinction between your emotions and absorbed emotions. Boundary scripts for real situations. Theory is useless without practical language. Here are word-for-word scripts. When someone wants to vent endlessly, I can listen for 15 minutes, then I need to step away. I care about you, and I also need to protect my energy. When someone wants you to solve their problem, I hear how difficult this is. What have you already tried? What do you think might help? Redirects responsibility back to them. When you need to leave a conversation, I need to take a break. This is intense and I'm reaching my capacity. No apology needed. This is a statement of fact. When someone crosses a boundary, when you, specific behavior, I feel, you're feeling. I need you to, specific request. Example, when you call me multiple times in a row, I feel overwhelmed. I need you to send one message and wait for my response. When you need to say no, I'm not able to do that. Full stop. No explanation required. No is a complete sentence. When someone guilt trips you, I understand you're disappointed. I'm still not able to do that. Acknowledge their feeling without changing your boundary. Practice these out loud. Literally speak them to a mirror. Your nervous system needs to know these words are available to you in the moment. Creative transmutation expanded. You need a channel for absorbed energy. Without it, it stagnates in your body and becomes anxiety, physical tension, or illness. Writing practices, stream of consciousness journaling. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Write without stopping, without editing. Let everything spill out, letter burning. Write a letter to the person, dark situation that's affecting you. Say everything you can't say in real life. Then safely burn it or tear it up. The physical destruction is cathartic. Poetry as release. You don't need to be good at poetry. Just write in short lines. Let the intensity shape the form. Art practices emotional color mapping. Choose colors that match what you're feeling. Paint or draw with no plan, just let the colors move. Clay work. The physical manipulation of clay is particularly grounding for empaths. Squeeze, shape, destroy, rebuild. Movement practices, emotional dancing. Put on music and move however your body wants to move. Let it be ugly, wild, uncontrolled. Walking meditation. Walk with the intention of leaving absorbed emotions behind with each step. Literally imagine them falling off your body onto the ground. Yoga for release. Poses like child's pose, Forward folds and hip openers help release stored emotional tension. Sound practices toning make sustained vocal sounds, ah, oh, The vibration literally moves stuck energy. Drumming or rhythmic movement, rhythm regulates the nervous system. The key is regularity. Don't wait until you're overwhelmed. Build these into your weekly routine, the weekly integration practice. Every Sunday evening or whatever day works, spend 30 minutes doing this. Review the week. What situations drained you? What patterns are you noticing? Identify boundary failures. Where did you say yes when you meant no? Where did you absorb when you should have observed? Plan adjustments. What will you do differently next week? What specific boundaries will you practice? Celebrate wins. Where did you successfully maintain a boundary? Acknowledge this. Your brain needs to recognize success to repeat the behavior. Energy assessment. On a scale of 1-10, how full is your emotional tank? If it's below 5, what will you do this week to refill it? This creates conscious learning instead of unconscious repetition of old patterns. Jung spoke of alchemy, the medieval practice of turning lead into gold, but he understood it as metaphor for psychological transformation. The stage he called mortificatio is the breaking down, the rotting, the dissolution of the old self. Your suffering was your mortificatio. You were broken down so that the old identity could decay, so that something new could emerge. But the alchemical process doesn't stop with breaking down. It continues with purification, with integration, with transformation into something more valuable. You are not meant to stay in the mortificatio stage forever. You're meant to move through it and emerge as something transmuted. And here's the key shift from broken empath to person who has integrated their experience and developed wisdom from it. The broken empath is stuck in the wound. The integrated empath has learned from the wound and moved forward. The broken empath says, "My sensitivity is a curse that makes me suffer." The integrated empath says, "My sensitivity, when combined with boundaries, is a gift." The broken empath attracts people who exploit them. The integrated empath attracts people who respect them. This is not about becoming hard or closed. It's about becoming boundaried and whole. It's about letting your tenderness be real and letting your strength be equally real. And when you reach this place, when you've done the hard work of integration, you discover something. You're no longer drowning in the flood. You're no longer desperately clinging to the branch. You're standing on new ground, solid and real, built from everything you've survived and integrated. And from that ground, you can finally do what you've always wanted to do, help others not by drowning with them, but by standing on the shore and reminding them that dry land exists. There's a mirror in front of you, but it's not like any mirror you've seen before. It's cracked, jagged fragments reflecting pieces of your face back to you in fractured segments. For so long you've hated this mirror. You've seen the cracks as proof of your brokenness. Evidence that you're damaged, incomplete, not whole. But what if you could see it differently? What if each crack actually reveals a different facet of who you are? The child who was hurt, the teenager who tried so hard to fit in, the young adult who gave too much, the survivor who learned to set boundaries, the healer who emerged from healing, the fierce protector, the gentle witness. All of these are you. The cracks don't distort the image, they reveal its complexity. You were never meant to be one-dimensional. You were never meant to be only gentle or only fierce, only soft or only strong. You are multifaceted. You are a constellation of experiences, each one contributing to the whole. The mirror isn't your enemy. It's a sacred map of where you've been and who you've become. And in this moment, something shifts. You bow before the mirror, not in shame, but in recognition, in honoring all the parts of yourself, including the ones you once tried to disown. This is what Carl Jung meant by individuation, becoming whole by integrating all the parts of yourself. Not becoming perfect, not erasing the difficult experiences, but bringing them all into conscious relationship with each other. The part of you that feels deeply and the part of you that sets boundaries. The part that opens and the part that protects. The part that connects and the part that maintains separateness. When these parts are in dialogue rather than in conflict, you become whole. Not unbroken, but integrated. And there's something profound about this that extends beyond your personal life. Because when you heal, when you truly integrate your experience, rather than just surviving it, you're not only changing yourself, you're changing the field of human consciousness itself. Jung understood that we're all connected through what he called the collective unconscious, the shared reservoir of human experiences, symbols, and archetypes. When you do the work of integration, you're not just healing your personal wound, you're contributing to the healing of a collective pattern. You see, you're not carrying only your own pain. You've been carrying humanity's pain. The archetypal wound of rejection, abandonment, betrayal, of being too much or not enough. These aren't just your issues, they're human issues that every person encounters in some form. Your sensitivity made you porous to this collective suffering. You absorbed not just what happened to you, but what has happened to people throughout history. The weight you've carried has been enormous, but here's the gift. When you heal it in yourself, you create a template. You become proof that integration is possible. You become a living example that the wound doesn't have to be the end of the story. And people feel this. They're drawn to you not because you're broken, but because you've become whole in a way that includes the broken parts. Think of the phoenix, not the cute Instagram version, the real myth. The phoenix doesn't just survive the fire, it becomes the fire. It's consumed completely, burned to ash. And from those ashes, it rises not as the same bird, but as something both familiar and new. Your trauma was the fire. Your breaking was the burning to ash. And what's rising now, the person you're becoming through this integration, that's the phoenix. You embody paradox now, sensitive yet boundaried, compassionate yet discerning, able to feel grief without drowning in it, able to witness pain without taking it on. This is the rare power, not the power of being broken, but the power of being whole after having been broken. You can sit with someone in the absolute worst moment of their life and remain grounded. Not because you're unfeeling, but because you've developed the capacity to hold intensity without being consumed by it. You can look at someone's shadow, their rage, their darkness, their shame, and not flinch. Because you've looked at your own. You know that the shadow isn't the enemy. It's just the parts we haven't yet integrated. And this capacity to be with what is, without needing it to be different. This is what makes you a bridge. Not between the broken and the whole, but between those still struggling and those learning to integrate. You walk forth now, not as cathedral in perfect condition, but as cathedral in ruin simultaneously. Beautiful not despite the cracks, but because of how the light comes through them. Your presence itself is holy, not in a religious sense, but in the sense that it's whole, integrated, real. And you get to choose carefully where to offer it. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. You're no longer desperate to be loved, desperate to prove your worth through service. You've discovered that you already have worth simply by being. You're no longer enslaved by the wound. The wound has become your teacher, yes, but you're not defined by it. You're no longer consumed by darkness. You've made darkness a companion. You understand it, you respect it, but you don't live there anymore. And from this place of integration, your contribution to the world shifts entirely. You're no longer helping from obligation or compulsion. You're serving from overflow, from genuine choice, from wholeness. Carl Jung's entire body of work points toward this individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, by integrating all aspects of yourself, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, masculine and feminine, personal and collective. And in the journey of personal development, this is the ultimate goal, not to become perfect, but to become whole. Not to erase your history, but to integrate it. Not to deny your sensitivity, but to pair it with strength. You are not the broken empath anymore. You are a whole person who survived difficulty and transformed it into wisdom. You are someone whose empathy is a gift rather than a curse, precisely because it's now protected by boundaries. Your sensitivity is a strength when you know how to ground it. Your depth is powerful when you know how to channel it. Your capacity to feel is extraordinary when you know how to distinguish what's yours from what's others. The sacred charge you carry now, and I want to be very clear that this is an invitation, not an obligation, is to live from this integrated place, to witness from wholeness, to guide from healed wisdom. Not because you have to prove anything, not because you owe anyone, but because you can. Because you've developed a capacity that's genuinely rare, the ability to be fully present with suffering without being destroyed by it. Your tears became learning. Your nightmares became maps. Your survival became evidence. And the flame you carry now is the indestructible light of consciousness that has been tested in fire and proven genuine. But let me end with this crucial reminder: you are not defined by what broke you. You are defined by how you chose to heal, to grow, to integrate, to become whole. You are not defined by your sensitivity. You are defined by what you do with it. You are not defined by your past suffering. You are defined by your present wholeness. You are not the broken empath. You are a full, complex, integrated human being who has survived, healed, and emerged with hard-won wisdom. And that is the rare power. Not the brokenness itself, but what you built from the pieces. If these words have resonated with you, I invite you to see yourself not as permanently broken, but as courageously healing. Integration is a practice, not a destination. If you're experiencing severe trauma symptoms, flashbacks, dissociation, depression, or thoughts of self-harm, please reach out to a licensed mental health professional. National crisis hotlines are available 24/7. This content is meant to complement professional support, not replace it. Healing is not linear, and there's no timeline you need to follow. Subscribe if you want more content exploring the wisdom of Carl Jung on the journey of the personal empath and sustainable personal development from a framework of integration and wholeness. Share this with someone who might need to hear that their sensitivity, when paired with boundaries and self-care, is a profound gift. And remember, this isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of living fully, not just surviving. You've spent enough time in the fire, It's time to become it, to let what burned you transform into the light you carry forward.